Welcome to Tales with Ghost King, your podcast for the bizarre, the weird, and the spooky.
Hello, and welcome back to Tales with Ghost King. This week's episode, we will explore ghost towns. Up first, we have Centrilla, Pennsylvania, a real-world ghost town famous for an underground coal mine fire that has been burning since 1962. Because smoke rises from cracks in the ground, and almost everyone has moved away, Centralia has become a hotspot for creepy stories and legends. Visitors love to do what folklore experts call legend tripping, visiting a scary place just to see if the rumors are true. Here are the biggest myths and legends surrounding this burning town. Long before the fire started, Centralia was a rough mining town. In the 1860s, a secret group of Irish miners called the Molly Maguires caused a lot of trouble and violence in the area. According to the story, 3 members of the Molly Maguires attacked the town's first Catholic priest, Father Daniel Ignatius McDermott, in 1869. Furious and hurt, the priest cursed the land. He swore that one day the town would disappear, and that St. Ignatius Roman Catholic Church would be the only building left standing. The curse came eerily close to coming true. While the government eventually tore down almost every home to keep people safe from toxic gases, the church actually survived the initial demolition waves. However, it was finally torn down in 1997 because the ground beneath it was unstable. If you like scary video games or movies, you might know about a foggy, monster-filled town called Silent Hill. A popular rumor claims that Centralia is the exact location where Silent Hill takes place, and that the movie was filmed here. The movie was not filmed in Centralia, however the town did inspire the movie. Roger Avery used Centralia as the model for the movie's creepy, ash-covered setting after his dad told him stories about the burning town. Because it literally has fire burning beneath the earth, it has inspired some very supernatural rumors. Some people believe that the smoke and steam rising from the cracked asphalts are signs that Centralia is a portal to another dimension or gateway to hell. The smoke is just water vapor and toxic gases like carbon monoxide caused by the coal fire hitting groundwater. For a long time, a closed-off section of Route 61 was a huge attraction. It was a cracked highway covered in miles of colorful street art. Ghost hunters claim that the highway is haunted. Visitors have reported seeing shadowy figures in the mist, hearing disembodied footsteps, and feeling sudden cold spots. While the highway felt incredibly spooky, it was completely buried under the dirt and rocks by a landfill company in 2020 to stop crowds from trespassing. Up next, we have the myths and legends of Kennecott, Alaska. Centered around its spooky transformation into a massive deserted ghost town, the mysterious death of the scientist it was named after, and stories of haunted mining ruins left behind in the wilderness. Once one of the richest copper mining areas in the entire world, the town was abruptly abandoned in 1938. Because workers left almost all of their everyday belongings behind, it created an eerie atmosphere that fueled decades of local legends. Many local legends claim that the massive 14-story wooden mill and the surrounding buildings are haunted by the spirits of the dead miners. The interrupted construction legend says that after the town was abandoned, early attempts by outside companies to come back and rebuild the area were stopped by the angry ghost of workers who died in mining accidents. Visitors and park rangers have reported hearing the sounds of phantom tools clanking, disembodied footsteps on wooden stairs, and whispers echoing through the empty rust-red buildings. Rumors persist that graves and old tombstones along the historic railroad lines that seem to disappear and reappear in the thick Alaskan bush. The very name of the area carries a tragic and mysterious historical legend. The glacier and valley were named after Robert Kennecott, a famous young explorer and scientist who helped start the Smithsonian Institute. In 1866, during a scientific trek through Alaska, the 30-year-old vanished from his camp. His friends found his dead body lying near the riverbank. For 150 years, dark rumors and legends swirled that he had poisoned himself out of stress or despair. It wasn't until modern scientists examined his bones in recent years that the myth was debunked. He actually died of a sudden heart attack caused by a congenital heart defect. Historical legends were often told about Kennecott and its neighboring town, McCarthy. Kennecott was strictly dry company town owned by rich corporations. Gambling, alcohol, and sex work were completely banned to keep the miners working hard. To break the rules, miners walked down the trail to the wild town of McCarthy, which quickly filled up with saloons, pool halls, and brothels to give the miners the forbidden fun they wanted. This created a legendary Jekyll and Hyde dynamic between the two frontier outposts. Even the spelling of the town is a bit of a funny legend. The glacier was named Kennecott with an I. However, when the wealthy Copper Corporation filed its official paperwork, a clerical worker misspelled the name as Kennecott with an E. Today, the geographic features use the I, while the historic structures use the E. Today, the site is protected by the National Park Service as a historical landmark. Then we have Pitcher, Oklahoma, and it's known as America's most toxic ghost town. Decades of lead and zinc mining left the town unsafe, causing the government to evacuate everyone. Today, the empty streets and giant hills of gray mining waste called Chat have sparked several modern myths, legends, and ghost stories. According to old mining folklore, miners believe small elf-like creatures called the Tommyknockers lived in the 300 miles of tunnels beneath the town. Miners claim they could hear them knocking on the stone walls to warn them of a cave-in or to play tricks on them. Some visitors and paranormal enthusiasts claim to hear the grinding of metal gears and the rattling of heavy chains at night. The legend says these are the sounds of ghostly mining elevators carrying long-dead workers up from the deep shafts. Pitcher is located near the borders of Kansas and Missouri, close to the famous Hornet Spooklight area. For over a century, people have seen a mysterious, floating ball of light in the sky. Legend says it is the spirit of an old miner looking for his lost head with a lantern. Urban explorers often whisper about seeing dark, blurry shapes walking behind the crumbling buildings. Because the town was abandoned quickly after a massive tornado in 2008, people say the spirits of the past are still wandering the ruins. A new rumor suggests that a strange, unknown creature lives in the thick, overgrown woods that are slowly swallowing the empty houses. While the ghost stories are spooky, the actual history of Pitcher is just as chilling. The real dangers that destroyed the town were not ghosts. Miners dug so many tunnels that the crust of the earth became weak. Giant sinkholes have literally opened up and swallowed cars and buildings into the darkness below. The giant gray hills look like regular gravel, but they are actually toxic waste. The dust blew through the town for decades, making the children very sick. The bleeding rivers, water inside the abandoned mines, mixed with heavy metals, caused nearby creeks to turn a bright, unnatural orange color from the acid in the iron. Down in Texas, we have Glen Rio. It doesn't have traditional supernatural folklore or monster myths. Instead, its legends come from its bizarre, real-world history as a ghost town literally split down the middle by two states. Sitting right on the border of Texas and New Mexico, along historic Route 66, this abandoned town created a legendary reputation for exploiting different state laws to survive. Because the state line cut right through the middle of the community, business owners played a clever game of chess with the state law. The Texas side of the town was in a completely dry county where alcohol was illegal. Because of this, all bars and saloons were built on the New Mexico side so travelers could grab a drink legally. New Mexico had very high tax on gasoline. To save drivers money, all the service stations were built on the Texas side, where fuel was much cheaper. The train station depot was in Texas, but the post office was in New Mexico. Every single day the postmaster had to walk across the state line to get the mail from the train, then walk back into New Mexico to sort it out. The name Glen Rio sounds peaceful and natural. It combines the Scottish word glen, meaning valley, and the Spanish word rio, meaning river. However, the town's name is a total lie. It sits on a completely flat desert prairie with no valley or no river anywhere in sight. Film buffs know Glen Rio for its brush with Hollywood. Director John Ford chose its dusty, isolated main street to film scenes for the famous 1940 movie, The Grapes of Wrath. Glen Rio was a bustling oasis for travelers until Interstate 40 was built in the 1970s, completely bypassing the whole town. Traffic vanished overnight. By the 1980s, only 2 people lived there. Today, it has 0 full-time residents. Finally, we have the myths and legends of St. Elmo. They revolve around a 14th century martyr whose terrifying trials turned him into a protective guardian for sailors. His name is forever linked to St. Elmo's fire, a ghostly blue glow that dances on ships' masts during intense storms. Seamen look to his strange light as a direct sign of his heavenly protection. St. Elmo was originally known as St. Erasma of Formia, an Italian bishop who lived during the late Roman Empire. Over hundreds of years, the name Erasmus slowly transformed through local dialects into Elmo. According to ancient legends, compiled in medieval texts like the Golden Legend on Wikipedia, Elmo suffered immense cruelty under the Roman Emperor for refusing to give up his Christian faith. To escape Roman prosecution, Elmo fled to Mount Lebanon. He lived as a hermit in isolation for 7 years, and legend says a raven miraculously brought him food every day to keep him alive. While Elmo was preaching a sermon, a massive bolt of lightning struck the ground right next to him. He completely ignored the blast and continued speaking without a scratch. This event is why people originally invoked his name for protection against lightning and thunder. After being discovered, Elmo was captured, beaten, and thrown into a dungeon. Legend states that an angel broke into the prison, shattered his chains, and helped him escape so he can keep preaching. Church lore says Elmo was eventually recaptured and executed around 303 AD by disembowelment, where his intestines were wound around a ship's winch, or windlass. Because of his agonizing torture, he became the patron saint for people suffering from stomach pain, cramps, and colic. Long before modern science explained it as a natural electrical discharge or plasma, sailors feared and respected the glowing lights that appeared on ships' masts before a storm. Seafaring communities created deep mythologies around this glowing light. Seamen believed the light was Elmo himself, watching over them. Because the windlass used in his execution looked like a ship's capstan, sailors naturally adopted him as their ultimate protector. If the blue flame appeared, it meant the saint was keeping the ship from sinking. Sailors watched the lights closely to tell the future. A single glowing light was considered bad luck, hinting that the ship would meet a stormy end. However, if 2 lights appeared at the same time, it was a beautiful omen, meaning the storm would soon quiet down. Some sailors believed the lights were actually the spirits of dead crew members who had returned from the deep to warn their living friends about a dangerous storm ahead. The legend of St. Elmo stretched far beyond European waters as a global trade grew, but before Christianity, the ancient Greeks saw these same storm lights as the demigod twins Castor and Pollux, who saved travelers in trouble at sea. When the Spanish explorers traveled to East Asia, the legend evolved in the Philippines. In Philippine mythology, the light became known as San Telmo, a fiery wandering ball of light. Unlike the protective saint, this spirit is often seen as the relentless soul of a person who drowned during a heavy storm, sometimes chasing lonely travelers near rivers or oceans. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode on ghost towns with all the lore, myths, and legends. Don't forget you can submit ghost stories to taleswithghostking@gmail.com. Shout out to all the new subscribers on YouTube, we appreciate you. Check back next week for new episodes of Tales with Ghost King. Thanks for listening.